Okay, welcome to another Race Insights from HB3, where we're going to break down races with our coaching team so you know exactly what to expect and how to train for it. And today we're talking about the ARC of Attrition with our coaches Lewis and Jessica, who know this one inside and out really quite well. So I'll start off with Jessica. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and what your relationship is with this event?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. My relationship with this event is varied. So being an ultra runner in the UK, it's kind of those quintessential races that you should have on your bucket list. So I have volunteered with the race for several years, anywhere from aid stations, marshalling, route team, but I've also run the 100-mile last year. So know the course very, very well. And this year I am again on the route team. I will be at all of the starts, hanging out with the race directors, getting them back and forth to the various starts, and potentially sweeping and route setting as well this year.
Cool.
Was
So
that
exactly that.
sweeping or sleeping? Which one was that?
Both.
Is there any sleep for the?
It's a very chill. There's no sleep when you volunteer on this race at all.
It's kind of 48 hours of, or probably more than 48 hours of no sleep if you're working the event, isn't it?
Yeah, it's grabbing a quick kip here and there, and because it is point to point, and with being on the route team and the start team, you do go throughout. So it's not just getting to the start of the race; it's very much going to different points along with the race directors or any of the archangels, who are an incredible crew of volunteers, but also if they need to swap out, if they need extra hands at an aid station, I'm quite amenable to move my position on the course.
Cool. So yeah, that's it. So you know this race both from both sides, both as an athlete and very much the behind the scenes that the runners often don't hear about and see as much. So Lewis, do you want to tell us about what's your experience with the ARC and why we're listening to you?
Yes, so I've done the ARC 50 in 2024. It's big in January. It always confuses me which year it is in. But yeah, 24 around the 50 and won that race, and then did the 100-miler last year and managed to win again. So I am now taking on the 25 this January, which I certainly won't win. But the
You know.
Well, you never know. You never know. Anything.
Some kind of super flu or some bug that wipes out all the decent runners that are going, that would help. But no, going back again because I really love the event, and I've actually got like a little thing now. I want to try all 4 distances, so we'll go into this, but there's 100-mile, 50-mile, 25-mile, and 12-mile now this year.
And now that's the new one,
That's the new one, But yeah, so doing the 25, just because it would feel wrong now not going down to Cornwall in January and running on some coast paths. So we'll get into details, but yeah, I've completely fallen for the ARC. I think it's a awesome event, and as Jessica says, should be one that's on everyone's bucket list.
That's it. I think everything. I've not done it, so I'm very much listening to you guys here. But everything you hear it's such a family event, and even though there was the purchase by UTMB and it's now a by UTMB event, the family feel for this race and the community that's around it sounds pretty special. And that's obviously why, again, Lewis, you're going back and back, and Jessica, again, you're back there yet again, and this time on the cruise side of things. So yeah, so if anybody's listening to this and they know about the ARC and maybe considering entering it, but want to know a bit more about the different distances. So we've already touched on that, Lewis, that there's obviously the 100, the 50, the 25, which was added in because it was originally just the 100 and the 50, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And now they've
originally
added
just 100, I think, originally, and then the
50 got brought in 5 years ago, 6 years ago,
something like that. Yeah, I think, and then Yeah, I think it was around COVID, like just before COVID it came in. And then then the 25 was new last year and the 12 is new this year. And that's like I guess it's like a standardization thing to fit in with the other UTMB races. But also it makes sense because the route, and again we'll jump into this, but the route kind of naturally breaks up into good sections anyway. So it's good. But just to touch on there, like your like family field assessment there, Tim, I think like before UTMB came in, and I was lucky enough to run the 50 the last year before UTMB came in, so I kind of got to see both sides of it. It was much more of a smaller, intimate community race pre-UTMB, but I really do think they've kept a lot of that magic in the race, and a big part of that is the volunteers. Like Jessica can shed some more light on, but I feel like they get such a good team of people behind this race to support. It's awesome.
Volunteering is one of the main reasons I came back. So even before it was UTMB, like all of the races that they put on have been phenomenal, and the Cornish running community is obviously second to none. It's the same reason why I keep going back down to Cornwall since I've moved south to train. But with the purchase of the race, there was like very minor differences that you could tell pre-UTMB and post-UTMB, but that central feeling of it's a community, everybody's looking out for each other is still there. And the group of volunteers they pull together are people who are truly passionate about the race. And like, I know people from Scotland that come down for the race. I know people from the Midlands that come down for the race purely just to volunteer. So if that's not enough to say how loved this race is.
So it tells you that if you're running this race, that you've got some really passionate people that are going to be there to help you and support you at all the aid stations, and obviously before and after. So, well, let's talk about the actual kind of race itself, because this is a point-to-point race. It's on the coastal path, which you think maybe is fairly flat, and you look at the elevation on it, and it doesn't go very high because it's obviously coastal, but what is that course actually like? So Lewis, tell us an overview of the whole course, and then you said about sort of breaking it down into different sections, that it naturally lends itself to those different sections. So yeah, do you want to kind of talk us through from the 100 onwards then?
Yeah, sure. So the course, as you say, is entirely on the southwest coast path. There might be a couple of minor diversions in there, but basically you are on the coast path for the whole 100 miles. The vast majority of it is kind of up, down, like kind of 60, 70, up to 100-meter hills, almost continuously, like very few sections when you're on the trail that's like flat. There are a couple of road sections in there as well. So it really, and like the coast path can be super muddy and boggy. It can be grass. It can be rocky. You basically have to be ready for anything and everything on that race. And then you throw in, of course, the fact it's in January and it's in a super exposed part of the British Isles. You can start the race in sunshine, and then you can get these kind of massive storms coming in across the Atlantic, and it's really got everything. And the final thing, as like a whole thing on the 100 miler at least, is that about 16 hours of it will be in darkness on the first night, and then a lot of people obviously go through into the second night as well. It starts at around midday. I think they've changed the timings a little bit this year, but not by much. So
I think it's like 12:30 or 1. I can check right now.
Yeah, so I might have moved it back an hour or something like that, but
between 11 and 12.
Okay, fine. There you go. So you get 4 or 5 hours in light, and then you're straight into darkness. So it's obviously a big endurance challenge. It's a tough race. It accumulates 5,000 meters, if you believe the website. I think my Strava was like 4,500 meters or something of climb, but a lot of climb basically. And I think if you're running the 100 miler especially, you've just got to be prepared for absolutely everything. Big kit list, sleep deprivation, like fueling, protecting yourself against the elements. It's a complex one, but that's what makes it so intriguing, I think.
And does that sort of terrain and elevation, does that vary along the whole length of the path then, or are there certain sections? So I know you've talked in the past about some sort of key sections for the 100 miler in terms of technicality, but is the 50 the same, or where are the road sections, for example?
Yeah, so Jess, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I was gonna say the road sections. The key one is heading in toward Penzance. So you have from Marazon Bay or Marazon into Penzance, and it's a long section of road. And
like 12k, I think, something like that.
It's
in total.
It's roughly 12 to 14k. And if you're someone that likes to make up time on flats, like this is the section to push a bit. Personally, I made up quite a bit of time on the flats in the road. And it also is a decision making when it comes to shoes, if you want to have that comfort underfoot with it, that section. There's also the section coming out of St. Ives through Corvus Bay. You get on the trail and then into Hale. It's a long road section through Hale before you get into the sand dunes from that section. And because that's so much later into the race for the hundreds, it can feel unrelenting. But it's also another time to like take a break from the hills, the constant up and downs, enjoy some flat, rock-free, mind the curbs moments. And then I think the next road bit's just coming in through Portreath. It's a very quick little dip down into the town, and then the small section in Porthtowan before you do the last climbs up. So there's for a trail race, there is quite a bit of road on these pivotal sections, but it's only just to bring you off the path to get back onto it. So
but it's worth if you're going to break the whole route up into like big sections, or at least how I tried to chunk it up, was the start through till Porthleven, which is at about 40k. First marathon basically is really wet and muddy underfoot if it's been raining, and that's like there are flatter sections in there, but you're going up and down a lot in there, and it's a part of the race that can really drain you. Bearing in mind you've got like 120k to go after that. The underfoot conditions and the elevation, and then the fact you're kind of going off quite quickly perhaps can really take it out of you. So that's all just about like managing effort, I think, in that part of the race. The next marathon then through to kind of Porthcurno, Land's End or whatever is a good mix. So that's where that big Penzance road section is that Jessica spoke about. You've got, I'd say in this section it's less elevation, but then after Penzance it's quite technical and rocky, and you're now at night time, so you're like kind of getting used to that things. Land's End is a big milestone because you then start heading east as opposed to west, and you're about halfway through the race or just over halfway. But this is where it gets tough. So from Land's End through to St. Ives is by far the trickiest section on this course. Everyone will say so. It's the most elevation in kind of one bit. It's got some of the biggest climbs, but it's the progress is painstakingly slow because it's very muddy, very slippy. It's completely like in and out winding. It's usually the early hours or like early in the morning for most people, and you're going to be at your most tiredest state, and it's just it's carnage, that section, isn't it, Jess? Like
that section. So everybody talks about this section, and because you're there and you're tired, it's not actually too dissimilar to parts of the first kind of marathon section, but because you're on fresh legs, you don't notice it as much. But I recce'd that section in the dark and I ended up running it in the daytime because I thought I would be fast enough to actually still hit it through the night.
Yeah.
No.
No, it's very tough, and it's really just about getting through it and grinding it out. I think that section. But what makes it even trickier this year is they've made you used to have an aid station at a place called Pendine at 105 kilometers, and then you'd basically use that aid station to just load up on as much as you can to then get you through the really tricky part of the course through to St Ives. And that section was about 20 kilometers, something like that, but it would take people 4 to 5 hours to do, like, easily. Yeah. They've now moved the St Ives aid station back another 8 kilometers, so now the section's even longer. The bit they've added on is mostly like road and pretty flat stuff, so it's not like,
it's moved it out to the rugby club just outside of the football club just outside of St Ives now, and that's purely for space reasons.
The good news, though, I think, is that you get crew at that point now, although it doesn't show that on the website yet, but I'm pretty sure Fergie said that you did. But anyway, we'll find that out later on.
They need to update that one, but we can go through. I don't actually see it on the volunteer update email that's come through. It's still Gadreeby is the next one after Land's End.
Fine.
But
either way, that's
we
a
didn't have
monster
crew at
section.
St Ives last year either.
No, but when I spoke to Fergie the other week, he promised me that although they're moving the aid station back, there was going to be crew there. He could have been just trying to. I'm not doing it, but he could have just been trying to appease me somehow. And then I'm of the opinion that once you get through St Ives and that flat section to Hale, you're on the finish straight. It is still basically the marathon, but that section then is probably the easiest, I would say, because it's not too muddy. The dunes are now marked. It used to be a nightmare for the dunes because of navigation, but the whole course is marked. And then you've got a couple of ups and downs, but really by that point you're just trying to get it done and get to the finish. The finish is unfortunately at the top of the biggest hill in the entire race, but by that point you don't care. You just like,
no, it's quite nice though, because you get there and depending on where you are, so you might not have seen it this year, Lewis, but as you're going up you can see all the headlights going back and forth on the switchback up the side of the hill, and all of the hills just before that with the steps, and it's actually quite nice.
That's cool.
Personally. Yeah. And that section through the dunes after being on the road and that sand, if it's not too muddy, is actually quite nice on the feet.
I like the dunes. They called them the Dunes of Doom, but I there was no doom in there for me. I was enjoying them. Yeah.
So that's useful for people to think about how they're going to chunk the race up then, as you sort of highlighted those more challenging sections, and just mentally knowing that yes, this is going to feel hard, and it is going to feel harder than the first sort of 40k because of the fatigue and the legs. But if you can get through that, it does get maybe that little bit less challenging. I wouldn't say easier, but it's going to be less challenging, isn't it? So do you know where the kind of highest drop rates are in terms of DNFs? Which kind of aid stations tend to be the carnage ones?
Last year, I think there were a handful at Porthtowan. You get quite a few at Land's End, because that's, you're halfway. Depending on how your day is going. I know when I was there was quite a few drops, and that was still quite high up in the standings. St Ives, if they don't get to St Ives, I think that's one that we've seen quite a few at, and then after then it's normally just timeouts.
So it's just a case of you can get through those first tough sections and just mentally prepare that you are going to be going through some tough moments and some low points, and have your mental strategies in place to get you through that. And if you can get out the other side, then you've got a good chance of pushing on to the finish. But that comes down to your race strategy and your mental preparation, and we've got other videos on that, so I'll kind of maybe put links to that down below. But then let's think about those aid stations themselves then. So are there any kind of really key aid stations that we want to think about in terms of particular logistics? There's some aid stations you allow crew at, aren't you? So which ones do you want the crew at, if you can get them, if you have got crew with you? So do you want to talk us through the aid stations? Jess, do you want to kind of lead us off on that?
Yeah, so the only race that you get crew on is the 100. The 50 gets drop bags, and then the 25 and 12 are solely aid stations. Crew, even based off our current conversation, it's stated at Portleven, Land's End, Gadreevy, and Portreath. So whether or not they change it to Lalande, I'm sure will be communicated in the next couple of weeks if they make that change. I think Portleven's good. I know, Lewis, you had your shoes swapped at Portleven this year. So if you have crew, depending on the course and how you're wanting to break it down by section, whether you want to switch to something that's a bit more great for hard underfoot road, if it's super, super muddy, I think that's a really good one to have that opportunity. Land's End is personally the best area for crew. It has a very large car park. It's a very large building. It's at the hotel. It's all in the side rooms. And I think one of the big things here is that with it being a UTMB race, only one person can come in as a crew support. So that's a really nice one where if you want the time to sit down, go there. I think a really good one, and this is just it's like if you go into Penzance, you have the whole boardwalk. So if your crew's out on the seafront, you can kind of see them there. You can kind of walk in and out of the aid station because it's all open road, and they have the best bacon and brie sandwiches. It was actually one of my favorite aid stations to get some food from. But that's a great one. St. Ives is the 50 drop bag area. So I think they're still in the small, no, it'll be the Lalande drop bag now. So that aid station is a bit larger. It'll be a bit more room to sit out, spread your gear out there for the 50. And then that was also the aid station that brought me back to life with their courier stew. But the food at all the aid stations are fantastic, which is another conversation. In terms of parking, the participant handbook that comes out, they're very strict on cars coming in and out of the villages because they are small Cornish lanes, because it is a point-to-point, very small villages. There isn't a lot of parking. So Portleven, there's some around, you can walk in. Said Land's End has a lot. St. Ives, if you're going for the start or wanting to kind of see your runner go through, I would park at the car park up by the leisure centre and walk down if you're able. There's a lot of parking up there. It keeps you from going in and out of all of the one-way streets, and with the coaches for the starts, it's quite impossible to get in and out of there with the coaches there. So you want to reduce that backlog of cars. And then I think along that as well, if you don't want to go into St. Ives, there's a lot of spots to park along Carbis Bay, Hale, en route. If you want to see your runners kind of through that section, which is especially for the 100 and the 50, really good section to motivate and see people. And then there's no parking or no estimated parking in Porttowan. They try to keep all vehicles away from that area. It's all one way for the event. And it just keeps the runners safe as they're trying to cross the road up onto that last climb. So I think those are the key aid stations. There are some that spectators are prohibited, and that's Coverack, the start, Mousehole, Minack Theatre. Saying here Lalance, unless it's so there's no crews at Lalance, so you can't go and see your runners at the drop bag. So you can go on either side to kind of cheer your runners on, and Trevelyan. So those are the areas where it's really hard to get into. It's really hard to drive, and you'll see your runner at another better point. So those are rules that they really stick by as well for spectators on course, just because it's not safe to have that many cars, especially with how large the event has grown in those areas.
So if there's people listening to this who maybe from overseas or not familiar with the Cornish lanes, you've already mentioned, these lanes are really narrow. So do you want to just maybe give a bit of an overview of what can they actually expect in terms of driving down and accessing these places?
If you have,
can you describe a Cornish lane to people?
You will come across many tractors, depending on the time of year. January is not too bad. You'll get livestock that's moved across the lanes in some areas. They're very windy. There's lots of hedges, and because the race is predominantly in the dark and your crew is going along, it's very hard to determine where some of the turns are. There's no GPS signal in most of Cornwall on the coast. So if you can pre-plan your route, it's all on one road, some dips.
Yeah.
It's not hard to navigate to the different set points. It's actually quite well sign marked along the main roads to each kind of aid station area. In terms of getting around, so a big rule with ARC, and it has been since before it was UTMB, is all the starters have to go to the finish, to the eco park where they register, and they get transported to their starts. So
okay,
there's no dropping your runners off. I mean, if you have accommodation, you can walk from your accommodation down. There's generally that lenient, but you're always transported. Every single person gets the coach to the start of their race.
That was going to be one of my sort of next questions then, really, is obviously planning the travel and the logistics of this being a point-to-point race. Is what do you try and look to do in terms of that travel and accommodation? So yes, it's aiming to get you accommodation at the finish rather than anywhere else, is it?
Yeah, I last year I had my accommodation in Carbis Bay, so kind of in between St. Ives and Hale. I think it was 25-minute drive to the finish to the eco park. With getting to the eco park, you want to take in time and consideration that you're going to have hundreds of vehicles trying to get to the finish to get the coaches and for registration. But the event has marshals to help direct traffic into the eco park. So I would say you could say anywhere along the course realistically and get to the finish and get transported back. But I think personally, the closer you can stay towards the finish, you're not having to rush and worry about time in the morning of your race. You're not having to worry about getting back quite late after your race. If you have a camper van, you can actually stay at the car park at the eco park. So that kind of takes accommodation out of the logistics. But yeah, it's just after the race, it's quite hectic, depending on where you're finishing. And this is for all distances. So preferably there'll be people parked along the road outside the eco park. If you can get somebody to go get your car and pick you up as you're leaving, rather than having to walk all the way down the road, that helps save in a bit of the kind of logistical nightmare of trying to find parking for your runner. Saves them from walking a couple kilometers down the road at night when the last thing they want to do is take another step.
Yeah. Fair dues. Okay. I think so the final point then on maybe the aid stations, Lewis, from your point of view as a runner, or again coaching any of our athletes, are there sort of particular aid stations where you're going to be thinking, right, you've really got to take your time here to fuel up, to really stuff your pockets with as much as possible? And you said about obviously lengthening some of the sections now with the moving of that aid station. Well, what were your kind of real key aid stations when you were chunking the race up?
Yeah, so as Jessica mentioned, that Porthleven, which is 40 kilometers in, that was the only time I changed my shoes in the whole race, because I knew the first 40k we'd had a massive bout of rain before the night before the race, and it's looking like a very wet winter again, so it'll probably be quite similar, but also can dry out quite quickly, the coast path. But that first section, I knew that if I was going to have to wear those shoes for a lot of the race, like my feet would have just been deteriorating in them because they'd have been wet and muddy. And also I didn't want to risk slipping over in that first 40k. So I wore like really luggy shoes. And then first time you see a crew is at Porthleven at 40k. So I took the opportunity to change my shoes then, which was a really good decision, because then you have quite a lot of runnable sections, the road gets more rocky, etc., and then comfort becomes key. So I basically I went from Spin STs at Scarpadoo to Spin Planets, and that was a really good strategy for me. So Porthleven was a huge one. Penzance is the next aid station. You don't get crew there, but it's about 64k. It's an important one because I think a lot of people will start struggling at this point. You just hit a big long road section, you're now in the dark, it's probably dawning on you how big this task is, and you've got another 100k to go, and it's going to get very tough. And I remember Fergie saying that for some reason the year just gone there were a lot of dropouts at Penzance. So that's one I think that's important, just to check your body over, make sure you're doing well, fuel up, because it's probably late dinner time for a lot of people, and get ready for kind of what's to come, which is a lot of technical and slow coast path. And then Land's End, you get your crew, as Jess says, really good crew point. You're kind of halfway, you're over halfway actually, and it's a good time to sort of to stock up. But it's also sandwiched between two other aid stations that are quite close, and the one after that is Pendeen. Now Pendeen for me is probably the most important aid station on the whole course, because that is at the start of that horrendous section. And so at Pendeen, that's when the race for me changed this year. I was with the guy who ended up second place, Dave Ryan. He was with me all the way up to that point, but then he pushed on quite quickly through that aid station, and I took a lot of time. I probably took like a good 5-6 minutes in that aid station, and had cheese sandwiches. That was my secret to the victory this year. I ate a lot of cheese sandwiches, but I also filled up my third water bottle. It's the only time I was carrying 3 bottles, just because I knew that section was going to take me at least 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I did the same.
Lucky.
And that's at the front of the race as well. So middle and back packers, we're talking even longer.
Yeah, I think people do take 5-6 hours to get through that 25k.
I think I was about 4.5-5 hours through that section. So
yeah. So that's what you got to be ready for. You've got, and again,
that was before it was longer.
Exactly, and you could be in. We were quite lucky at that point. It was dry, but you could be in horrible weather. You're really exposed at that part of coast path.
It's the only section of the course I actually remember being relatively dry. So
above feet, yeah. Below
feet. Above feet.
yeah. Below feet is not dry.
Ankles are not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so Pendeen, if I was coaching anyone doing the race, it would be critical that is a place you stop, you think, maybe have some notes to look at and remember to do everything right there. And then from that point, the aid stations are just really about just making sure you're fueling, taking on what you can. Chances are you're going to feel pretty sick from this point onwards. It's going to be a bit of a survival game. You see your crew, as Jeff said, at Godrevi, which is 143k, getting quite close to the end now. and then at Portreath, which is just 7 or 8k from the finish. So really, they are good touch points for your crew, because they just can help you get through those last miles when you might be really sort of struggling. But I saw my crew at Godrevy, had a Red Bull, I think, and a cheese sandwich, obviously, and then at Portreath I actually didn't. Simon was there, but I didn't see him. I didn't stop. I just kind of was ready to push on and get it done at that point. So yeah, I think that there's enough aid stations in there. There is that very long section, but there's enough aid stations. Use them wisely. As Jess says, they're super well stocked. Really
they
friendly.
cater for pretty much in every dietary restriction
Yeah.
you could want. There's hot food, there's cold food, and then if there's any specific like sports nutrition that you take, have that in your drop bag. Have a couple extra gels on you, especially for that section. Just it makes the difference. But the food, you could like. I remember walking out of St. Ives with a bowl of custard, and there's a photo of me somewhere where I'm just happily walking up the hill from St. Ives, having this bowl of custard.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Actually, you made a good point in there, Jess. Like the sports nutrition, that again was another like thing that I tried to focus on. Was that now it's a UTMB event, they use NAC. I assume they still use NAC.
Yeah, they still use NAC.
Yeah. So, which they have the kind of drink mix, which has carb and sodium in it, and then they have like the bars, they have the gels. I think it's really worth, because there are such long sections between crew, you are almost certainly going to have to rely on some of that nutrition. So I really advise anyone just to get like some NAC products to play around with, so you're used to it. Like the bars are a bit unique, like I find them quite like hard to digest. But the drink mix I got on really well with. Yeah, especially when it's cold, exactly. But I really got on well with the drink mix. So that got me through the second half of the race, I think. But yeah, note that the aid stations will have just about everything, but all the kind of like sports, like gels, mixes, that'll all be NAC. It won't be anything else in there.
So that goes for any races. Know what the race nutrition is, and make sure you then tested that. So, I mean, you've touched on this a little bit, but in terms of particular kit, so this is obviously a winter race in a pretty potentially wet, windy, exposed part of the world. I believe it's going to be sort of cold weather, UTMB cold weather kit mandatory regardless, at least for the 100 and the 50. Is that right? I think so.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So,
that's right.
but and Lewis, you talked about changing your shoes and having shoes with a lot more grip for that sort of key section of the start. Is there anything else from a kit point of view that you would say that this race is really important to consider?
Yeah, I think for me there's probably like shoes are a big thing, and don't be afraid. They do have these like rules on how much size of a bag a crew can bring and everything like that, but it's a sort of race where actually I think it's quite good to have like 2 or 3 pairs of shoes you can rotate around, because you're going to get really wet feet. Like it's nice just to kind of rotate through. Last year I took, even though it wasn't that cold, I took the approach of just trying to stay warm from the very start. So I started in tights, I finished in tights.
You're like me and don't tend to wear them, and I did the exact same thing.
I don't. Well, I guess I wear them now a bit more, but like it's I've never worn them for a race before, I don't think, and that was something that paid off for me actually, because I was never cold at any point. I had a base layer t-shirt and a waterproof on for the last 100k, so from Penzance onwards, because it rained, and that's the big thing, is like it's gonna rain, it's likely to rain. You want to be ahead of it, so ask the people at aid stations, ask crew. Weather is super important on this race. If a storm's coming in, it comes in fast and it soaks you, so you need to be like waterproofed up before that happens, not reacting to it and getting wet, because that's when you get cold.
I ran into Land's End and it was dry and went out and torrential within half an hour of beautiful clear sky, and then the storm came in.
Exactly. And because there are sections where you're moving very slow on there as well. And like it was a big thing at UTMB this year. Like people were a bit shocked at how cold it was, slow moving. I'm not looking at anyone in particular here, Tim, but like
I think I've got the sensation back on my fingers now, just.
Hopefully it won't be that bad. But the point is, they make you carry a lot of kit, and I think people react a little bit negatively to it sometimes, but I can assure you it is all completely necessary in case things go wrong. The other big thing I would advise people to play around with a little bit and focus on is a head torch. These can be expensive. I think 200 lumens is like the rule for the main head torch or something like that. But
that's
300 lumens now.
300 is it? Yeah. So there's two things you got to think about the head torch. One is you want a very good one because it is tricky at places. It can be quite misty with the sea spray coming in, all that kind of stuff. It can be very difficult to see the path ahead. So you need a good head torch. The other thing to really manage is battery life. So you can carry two, and of course you can work with your crew, but like you're going to be in the dark for 16 hours, so or 15 hours maybe. But like, and then again in the second night if you're kind of going through that long. So managing the battery of your head torch is a huge challenge, I think.
Use your drop bag to have a charger in there and charge up your head torches, because you need 2 head torches and a spare battery for each. And have spare batteries in your drop bag or with your crew. You can have them, and then when you're sat, charge it up. Lands and a really good
absolutely
one.
And little things like when you're on the road sections, turn your head torch off if you don't need it, or put it on the lowest setting, or like when you go into aid stations, save your battery. Like it sounds like little things, but the last thing you want is to be stressing about not having a head torch that's good enough or that works.
Same with the back red light. I saw a lot of people's red lights actually not turning on or dying. So at least change the battery if you have one. I use a bike light on my pack. So
I use a very small bike light as well. Yeah. No, that's a really good tip about the head torch. And I remember my first 100 miler, I got caught out running out of battery towards the very end, and it was real touch and go as to whether I was going to be able to see the final few miles.
I think another bit of kit for me as well, and it's become standard for me, and Tim, you made a comment about this a couple of weeks ago, do you ever see me without my my sunglasses? It's part of the winter kit, which is clear glasses. Just get a really cheap pair of safety glasses to cover this. But because of the wind, and especially at night, this is a safety issue. It's one of the reasons why they have it on the spine as well, is the wind can cause really bad eye problems. And if it's unrelenting the entire race, you want to give your eyes a bit of a break, not just be able to see, but it's the scene and be able to actually tell where you're putting your foot. And I think I wore mine for pretty much the entire evening, just because of there being a lot of strong headwind for a good section of that second half.
Plus you look great as well. Like it's a really good fashion look, I think, the clear glasses.
It is great. I would go for the goggles. I could find nice.
Well, I use the bowling, the actual sort of safety goggles, like you said, strap on. And I know people that have used almost like swimming goggles in the past and things like that. And it works. It keeps your eyes safe. Yeah.
If it works, it's not wrong.
We don't do ultra running in winter to look cool. That's for sure.
No. Absolutely. So, just to start to wrap up then, if we're thinking about the sort of preparation for this race, while there's no sort of magic training session, is there anything that you'd really consider that you need to build into your training for an event such as this? So Lewis, do you want to start off from sort of what sessions did you find most beneficial? What would you give an athlete that you're coaching?
So there's a few here. The one thing I would absolutely not neglect is strength and conditioning in the gym. I think this is a sort of race that really tests your strength. And I think if you if you put the effort in the gym and you've done lots of big heavy lifting, squats, deadlifts, full body lifts, like that's going to pay dividends in the second half of this race. If you've neglected that stuff, I think it's very easy that your quads are going to go, your joints are going to go, you know, like it's that kind of race that really does test your strength. So that's like, for me, aside from like running that's like number one priority is getting in the gym and hitting that strength work week in, week out. The second, for me, like the running is, you obviously want to have like a good bit of volume behind you, but I have managed to get by on this race without doing like huge amounts of volume in my training block. I think the strength helped there certainly, but also I think I just focused on doing the quality work right. So 2-3 minute hill reps, like those kind of sessions were a big part of my plan. There were a couple of like quite niche sessions, like for example doing up and overs, so like a hill sprint followed by then a flat all out effort, really kind of getting you used to getting over the tops of those hills and still keep momentum rather than like just stopping and wanting to rest. And then having like kind of strides, hill sprints in amongst easy runs as well, was really good at kind of just getting your economy right, because like this is a race about economy. Like it's called the ARC of Attrition because it looks to be that attrition on you, and it's if you can stay economical, if you can stay well fueled, if you can manage your body and your kit right, then you will do well in this race, I think.
So I think you sort of hit the nail on the head. Obviously, I coach you from an endurance point of view, but we can really give the credit to Morgan, our S&C coach, for your success early this year. So Jess, what about you? What would you say were the kind of most beneficial sort of training approaches for the ARC?
I will echo everything Lewis just said. If anything, I'm probably an ultra runner that spends more time in the gym than I do running at at various points of the year. But that's the foundation of any sport. A lot of mobility, stability, and plyometrics because of the rot and the kind of undulating terrain that you can get, and the varied terrain. And if you're going down a hill very quickly or up a hill very quickly, just being able to bounce off the rocks or the steps with confidence. So doing that, but also practicing descents. So like Lewis said, having those sprints up the hill and then all out efforts at the top, but then doing the exact same in reverse, to be able to have that. So if you had a loop where you could go up, run a couple of kilometers, come back down, run, and keep doing that, or down and up and across. I did a lot of that to kind of mimic how the coast path is when I couldn't get out. And I think it's just because it's winter, getting out in the really adverse conditions safely, because you don't have, unless you have somebody kind of keeping an eye out for you or have specific drop-off points when you're training, is just getting out in the weather, getting used to being out in the rain and the cold for a few hours. The dark.
They're comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point, Jess. Really agree with that.
I think most of my runs leading up to ARC were all at night, all in bad weather. If it was really, really nice out, I think I forced myself inside to do treadmill and stair climber sessions, just to prove a point that you can still get the work done. And then just trying to mix it in with your everyday life. But yeah, I think that's the biggest one. Oh, and then maybe not from a training standpoint, but getting used to like all the nutrition, getting used to everything like that. It's not just training, it's the nutrition, it's the mental game. And then any kit that you're using, make sure it meets your needs. I use trench cream. It may not be a mandatory kit thing, but because of how wet, and I probably should have put it on sooner in the race this year. If you're someone that really suffers under wet conditions, I just keep a teeny tiny bar of that.
Trench foot.
So it's just the the little white stick.
Yeah. My feet were lathered in that all through the race. Yeah.
It wasn't until I got to Land's End I was like, oh, I feel like I have a pebble or a blister on my my foot, and I don't get blisters. So we thoroughly applied that, and it made the difference for the last half after beginning to suffer with it. So trying stuff like that before the race is probably best.
Well, that's it. Try everything before the race and make sure you know what works for you. But foot care is for any ultra marathon is important. But considering the conditions underfoot is going to be especially important here. Okay, so then I'll give you sort of one final question then, and I'll put this to both of you. So, Lewis, I'll come to you first. If you had one piece of advice for a first timer doing this race, what would it be? What would be your most important tip?
So hard to give one. I think
all of the above.
All of the above, yeah. I think my tip would be just focus entirely on body management. Like, you're just stay super aware of it right from the get-go. Like Jess mentioned there, feeling something on her foot. Is it a blister? Is it a pebble? Like, fix it ASAP. I think there are races where you can get away with that stuff. You can just kind of plow on and get through it. But not on this race. This is, like I say, it's the ARC of Attrition. It's designed to like.
It's unforgiving.
It's unforgiving, yeah. So and yeah, it's hard. It's a hard race. So respect the challenge. Fix problems as soon as they arise, or ideally even stop them arising in the first place. But like that is the number one tip. Is just focus on managing your body, managing your effort, and keep it all as relaxing and enjoyable as you can.
Yeah.
That's it. And then Jess, what would be your kind of number one tip for a first timer?
I'm not going to echo Lewis too much because it's all really important. But for a first timer, it's just similar to body management. It's just making sure you keep eating. This is a race where you will run out of energy very quickly if you don't eat early and often. So make use of those great aid stations, make use of your training and your sports nutrition, make use of your crew where you have it. If there's something you want, text them and get it. Text early because it's Cornwall and things shut early on the weekends. And I'm just going to put a bonus one because of the 12 race being added. They've moved back to a 3-day format. And I think if you're able to go to the awards ceremony on the Sunday, it's such a fun environment and you really feel the community because everybody comes and you can just congratulate everybody you wouldn't have seen throughout the race. So little bonus thing to enjoy as well.
Nice. Okay, well, thanks very much, Jessica and Lewis, and thanks for watching. So if you're doing this race this coming year, good luck, and if you're thinking about this race in the future, hopefully that's given you some insights on what you might be letting yourself in for. So if you want to know more, you can check out the links below. We've got other race breakdowns where we talk through the specifics of each individual event, so you can subscribe to stay up to date. Otherwise, thank you very much. Cheers.
Good luck.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lewis.